reads its own. And our host for today is Ruth Freckman. So Ruth, take it away.
Okay, moving on to our next reader will be Gerald Everett Jones. And Gerald is a board member of IWASC, and he will be reading from Preacher Raises the Dead, Evan Wycliffe #3, which will be released March 1st. Go ahead, Gerald.
Thank you, Ruth. In this excerpt, working as a full-time minister now, Evan goes to visit a church member in the hospital only to find out that she's just had a heart attack. Nurse Ornette Wheeler told Evan, "You see, we thought we'd lost her. Actually, we did lose her. She'd been in AFib through the evening. We medicated, but suddenly arrest. She coded. The team tried to resuscitate her, but she stayed flatline. The doctor called it, and the team left the room. I sent a pickup order to the morgue. But evidently, miracles do happen. I don't know how, but when they came to get her, she was back, sitting up and chattering like a jaybird." The nurse shook her head as if wondering whether she'd imagined it all. "How is she now?" "That's the thing. Before this, she was withdrawn. She's hardly said a word to anyone for months. Listless, low appetite. After a serious episode like this, we'd expect to keep her in ICU for a while. But today she's sitting up and running on like a motor mouth. She's not making much sense, which is her way, but she's acting like she's got a new lease on life." This usually stoic nurse seemed close to grateful tears. Evan asked cautiously, "May I see her? This may not be the time." "She's negative for COVID, so this cardiac episode is unrelated. The night shift attending has gone home. The resident is here, but he wasn't on the floor when she coded. My shift was over an hour ago, but I really want to be sure she's stabilized. You shouldn't stay long." It was just past 8 in the morning. Anne Shackleton was indeed sitting up in bed in a private room. There were oxygen tubes in her nostrils, and she was hooked up to a heart monitor, which was displaying a steady sinus rhythm. "Doctor," she declared as Evan entered the room with Nurse Wheeler. The patient's cheeks were rosy, her eyes were sparkling blue, and her hair was a mass of white curls. Evan calculated she should be in her mid-50s, but because of the effects of her long-term illness, he'd always thought she looked much older. Today, she seemed vital and didn't look at all like an invalid who'd been anywhere near death's door. "Doctor of Divinity, actually," Evan muttered as he sat. "I'm Reverend Wycliffe from Evangel Baptist. Stuart asked me to call on you." The nurse stood next to the bed and gently took Anne's arm by the wrist with her gloved hand as if taking her pulse. The monitor's electronics were already doing that, but Evan guessed the nurse thought her touch might be comforting to the patient, and it was her excuse to linger by the bed. "Stuart, Stuart, Stuart, Stuart," Anne tisked with a pronounced lisp. "That man will be the death of me, but not yet." "He's had some life challenges of his own recently," Evan offered. "I'm sure he'll want to see you as soon as he can put things in order." "You know, doctor," the woman insisted, "my left arm was hurting something awful, and the pressure in my chest, but now I'm breathing easier. What did you give me? Must be good stuff." Evan realized her hissing lisp was because several of her upper teeth were missing. Ornette interjected, "We gave you medicine to keep your heart beating steadily. You're doing fine now, but you need your rest. The Reverend can't stay long." Evan thought to ask Ornette, "Does Mrs. Shackleton perhaps have a denture? She might be more comfortable talking if she can have it." "Oh, I'm so sorry," Ornette exclaimed. "In all the excitement last night, I forgot where I put it." She started to open the drawer to the bedside table when Mrs. Shackleton shouted, "Not in there. You put it in my slippers, dear." Evan looked where Anne was pointing to see a pair of fuzzy pink slippers near his elbow perched on the radiator. The slippers were monogrammed with the patient's initials AKS, except the S was larger and in the middle, spelling ASK. Now there's an omen, Evan thought. Evan was startled to hear the nurse gasp as he rushed over to grab the slippers. She shoved her hand inside to retrieve Anne's dental bridge, removed it from its clear plastic bag, and quickly handed it over. Anne shoved the denture in, and her face lit up in a broad smile. Having all her teeth certainly made her prettier. Also tucked inside one of the slippers was gold jewelry, which Anne clutched at eagerly, perhaps not realizing her watch and wedding rings had also been missing. "And put those slippers back on me," Anne commanded, this time with no lisp. "My feet are cold." The nurse turned the covers down, replaced the slippers, and tucked the patient in. Then she turned to Evan and whispered, "Could we have a word outside?" Ornette looked solemn and she was shaking. Evan couldn't imagine what had transpired in the last few moments to upset her so. As Evan got up to follow the nurse out, he said to Anne, "We'll have a longer visit when you're feeling better. Is there anything you'd like me to bring you?" She flashed him a girlish grin and replied, "You always tell me I already have all that I need, Father." Evan realized she must think I'm her parish priest. I wonder whether he was the one who came to give her the last rites. In the hallway just outside Mrs. Shackleton's room, Nurse Wheeler grabbed Evan's arm as if clutching him for support. "What's the matter?" he asked her. "Are you feeling okay? I suppose it's been an ordeal." She responded breathlessly, "I removed her slippers. Then I removed the denture and her watch and her rings. I was gathering her personal effects. Procedure is to bag them before they come to take her to the morgue. But I didn't have a bag handy, so I set them aside." "What are you trying to tell me?" "She couldn't have seen me do it. She'd been clinically dead for 14 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Gerald.